Good evening, Mind Trippers, and thank you again for joining us. This month, we're talking all about love, and we can't be more excited.
Right. We're going to be talking about love so much today that you're going to think it's February.
So in our previous histories as therapists, we did lots of marriage counseling. As coaches, we do lots of relationship coaching. So this is right up our alley. So our agenda is a little bit different. I would say possibly more structured tonight. We're going to start out talking about what love is, what love is not.
Because there's a lot of knots. So I think we're going to explore a little bit of the myths when it comes to love, what it is and what it's not as well.
Talk about the 3 C's of communication, and we're actually going to provide you with some tips that we provide our clients in coaching on effective communication skills, along with some other things. And we're going to close with giving you a really great activity on how to decide, or maybe better ascertain, if what you're feeling is a healthy love.
Right, absolutely. So love is definitely one of those feeling words, one of those emotions that we see a lot of people throw around in society nowadays. I kind of feel like, or it's used quite loosely, which, for some people it is a terms of endearment, like, oh my gosh, I really love him, even though you might not be feeling those feelings of love. But I think it's kind of important to actually define what that is and what that looks like for you in the many different relationships that you have in your life. So maybe with a spouse, maybe with your children, with your friends, right? So
yeah, and so we want to be very clear and upfront in that we are going to be very careful in not using the word should, because every relationship, like you said, whether romantic, friend, or other, needs to be what feels healthy for you. So there are no shoulds or should nots. We're not here to preach what it should or shouldn't be, but rather to kind of give you what we've learned over the years of counseling and coaching people.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. So it's very important that, we mentioned that disclaimer, because love looks different depending on the relationship of the person who's in front of you or that you're dealing with. Because what love looks like for her and her relationship could be completely different for me and mine. So let's jump off. What is love? So an example of love is, the biggest thing that I feel like when I think about love is just being with somebody who inspires you to be yourself. Just somebody who sees, your potential, sees the best in you. They don't want to cloud, they don't want to cloud your gift, and they don't want to take the light off of you. They kind of want to help bump you up, promote you. They want to help make you become this person that they see in your eyes, in their eyes.
We posted something on our social media earlier this week, yesterday, I believe, that said, your soulmate is not someone who completes you, but your soulmate is someone who inspires you to be your best self. And, it's without judgment, it's without shame. I think a lot of us sometimes, or I see relationships where one person's pushing the other one to be better, but with a little bit of shame or judgment, or you have to be this way, you should be this way, and not because through love and growth is naturally inspiring. So it can go in an unhealthy way very quickly. So, love a lot of times in whatever kind of relationships looks like that natural internal inspiration and motivation to be better.
Share that quote one more time, because I wanted to say something about that.
Okay. A soulmate is not someone who completes you, but someone who inspires you to be your best self.
Guys, that is so powerful. A lot of times in relationship coaching, I find that many of our couples are looking for people to complete them. He's my puzzle piece, and with him I am complete. But that really takes away from your own self-value and your own self-worth. You should never look for somebody to complete you. You should look for somebody who's going to enhance your life and kind of pull out those best pieces of you. You don't want to look to somebody to complete you, because if the relationship ends up not being what love is, you kind of get left like, oh my gosh, now what? Like an entire piece of me is missing.
And, again, whether it's friendship, and I know we're going to keep repeating this, or romantic relationship, it should be easy. Oh, I just said the word should.
Ooh.
And I said I wouldn't. Ooh, strike one. Generally, it's easy to set healthy boundaries, right? There, if you're getting a lot of pushback for setting a healthy boundary, saying this isn't okay, I would start to question, that relationship some, and how healthy it is for you.
I agree. The next tip we have is our definition of what love is without judgment or shame. You kind of touched on that a little bit there, but this is a big thing in relationships that we see, even when we do relationship coaching, but like individual, not as the couple. A lot of times we'll see the woman or the man just say, my husband or my boyfriend really makes me feel like I should be doing this, and makes me feel really bad when I don't measure up to something. Now, like you said, we shouldn't say the shoulds, but try not to get things misconstrued. Sometimes communication can be off, and it's likely that they may be trying to encourage you to be the better version of yourself, but sometimes it could come off as like shaming, and that can put you down.
And so I just think in general, love is something that, right, there's mutual respect, there's mutual effort, right? If you're always the one feeling you're putting in more effort, we're red flagging that, right? There's sometimes, at times, one person's putting in more effort, but overall, effort is equal, respect is equal. I think of silly and playful and serious. Like you said, it's everything that is that comes natural and easy and positive.
I'm thinking of my own relationship, and just the silly and the playfulness, and being able to both put forth effort into the relationship. That definitely shows that there's a overwhelming feeling of love in that relationship. It can be difficult for one person to pull the weight all the time, or one person that's always going above and beyond, while the other person is just kicking their feet up, just relax, like, oh, you'll take care of everything. And I think that's an easy pattern to kind of fall into. I feel like we always go this route, but sometimes when we grow up in families or households where there's trauma or abuse or whatever may have happened to you, it can be difficult to actually learn what love is. And some people actually kind of feel like, I have to overcompensate. I have to go over the top, and I have to do all these things to show my value, show my love. But that's what you need to stay away from when it comes to that. Your partner should support you, and it should be equal. Now, there are going to be times, like for those of you who are married in sickness and in health, which let's not even go there with my relationship right now, right? Make my hair go crazy. But there are certain times where love is going to be making up for the other person and just being there for them because they're not quite able to at that moment.
Right. That's the difference between moments and overall. Right. So it's pretty easy for you to decide to discern who's generally pulling more of the weight, and that's definitely something to consider. Right. So there's a quote to kind of wrap up what we've been talking about. Some common, what I call green flags. Right. So when we see couples come into coaching who have what we just talked about, those are the green flags. But a healthy relationship is one that enriches you and not imprisons you.
Ooh, enriches, not imprisons. What does that mean?
So, again, like I think what we talked about in that love will inspire you. It will inspire you to be better. It will motivate you. It's always safe. It's a safe place to be. It's that place where your heart knows is home, right? Without shame, without judgment. Because shame and judgment are bars on a prison door, right? They hold you in. They keep you down. So anything that will do that is an imprisonment. So love will always enrich you and make life better. Like kind of like you said, you said that a soulmate is not someone that should complete you or be the puzzle piece, right?
Correct.
And so that kind of goes to saying you can't love someone else properly until you love yourself, or they can't love you until they love themselves, right? And so loving someone or being in a healthy, loving relationship means you already have a good life and you already love yourself. It's just enriching it and making it that much better.
Right. I'm very excited that you actually brought that up. Just being able to love yourself and see value in yourself first. So love is having just that overall outlook in your life that, you appreciate yourself. Maybe you go to sleep at a decent time, getting your 8 hours of rest, which I know some people, like this lady over here, she can survive off of 4 hours of sleep. So that's a little bit of self-love, right? But also like eating healthy, working out, just keeping an overall positive mindset. Respecting yourself. Things like that shows that you are a healthy individual who is capable of loving yourself, so that you can give it back to those around you.
I think one of the biggest struggles we find with the individuals who come in for relationship coaching is that A lot of people will argue and say, well, I don't love myself, but I still love the other person. And they're so adamant. And what we like to decipher for them is there's a difference between love and attachment.
Right.
And what we find is that person's often attached with so much intensity and passion, but it's not love. Right? Because again, you have to be able to love yourself before you love others in this healthy way. Because when you don't, we start to get into unhealthy love and unhealthy relationships. So you can take it away with that.
I want to proceed with this quote here, and it's that two unhealthy people can never have a healthy relationship. Now, when you think about like social media and how it's a highlight reel, you could see a couple just happy all the time, going out of town, holding hands, the lovely love quotes, but behind closed doors, it can be very tumultuous. It can be very abusive, and just examples of what love is not. So let's jump into some of those signs of what love is not. Gaslighting and manipulation.
So explain more what gaslighting means for those who don't know.
Gaslighting is one of my favorite terms. It kind of works synonymously with manipulation. But let's say that you see something or you feel something is wrong or off, and your significant other or friend, or friend makes you feel like it's you that's the problem. So who is who? Let's role play. Who is who?
I'll be the gaslighter.
Okay. Nikki, I just don't understand what's happening right now. Like, we keep setting these times to meet up with each other, and you just are blowing it off.
What are you talking about? I'm busy. I feel like you always do this. You have no respect for my life because I'm busy and I can't make a couple of appointments, and you make a big deal about it. You're a drama queen.
A couple of appointments, I think. Oh, okay. I mean,
can you just quit being a drama queen?
You did tell me you're busy. Okay. End scene. So, for example, like I was just sharing with her, I feel like she's blowing off the commitments that we made with each other. And she's gaslighting me, saying, what are you talking about? I'm there, right? You try to make me feel like
you're crazy.
I'm crazy. I'm there. I told you that I was going to be late, or I told you I've got all these things going on. That is a common thing that we see in a lot of unhealthy relationships.
And I think when we think about gaslighting, we think about major, we see something on investigative ID or on TV, right? Gaslighting can be that simple. You're crazy. You're always the drama queen. And then you'll start to question, well, I am a little dramatic.
Right.
It's not the first time I've told I've been dramatic, right? When you start to question that, you weren't blaming, you weren't yelling at me. You're just like, hey, I feel some kind of way. So when you get a response that is that defensive and automatically is like, you're crazy, you're this or that, that's gaslighting, and that's a problem.
Right.
It's a problem.
It is. And I think manipulation is definitely a big thing too. And we're going to definitely get into the 3 C's of healthy relationships, but just manipulating somebody's mindset or manipulating how that person may feel, or even like making them feel like what they see is not a big problem, like that can cause your relationship to fail rather quickly. You have any examples of manipulation? I'm gonna put you on the spot now.
I think a lot of times, so I think people might push back on this, but a common form of manipulation that we see is ultimatums. That's a good example. So there's a difference between giving an ultimatum and setting a healthy boundary. We can talk more about that and setting boundaries later. We all have to set healthy boundaries. Right. And in our heads, we can say this boundary has to be set or else I'm leaving. But when you start to tell people all the time, it's this or I'm leaving you.
Right.
When you start to give ultimatums, that is a way of manipulating people into giving them the answer you're desiring, and not because it's coming from what they naturally want, and that oftentimes fails. Very few times have I heard of, not that it doesn't happen, but a few times have I heard of ultimatums working out, and they do occasionally. And once in a great while, you do need to set one, but again, if you find yourself more than, let's say, once or twice using an ultimatum, I would say that's probably a red flag.
Right. And you're right, there's definitely a clear line between setting boundaries for yourself, things that you will and will not accept in a relationship, and just that manipulation of setting those ultimatums to try to get your way, or your partner trying to get their way, or get one over on you or gaslight you.
So another sign of what a healthy relationship is not is one that's full of jealousy or distrust. Now, I think of jealousy as we all get a little bit jealous over things that we don't feel are necessarily real.
So let's go with friends. Because we like to take the road less traveled. So let's go with jealousy and friendship. So a lot of times, many of us grew up with a specific group of friends. You know, you've been friends for 20 plus years, and then you make a new friend at work that you start hanging out with more. Sometimes you might start to feel a little bit of jealousy from your friends from your old group. They might start to question, like, what are you doing? Why are you hanging out with them? I thought it was us, ride or die, no new friends type of situation. So some jealousy can spark in that situation as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to take the road commonly traveled here. Yeah, so in relationships, right, it's normal, again, to be a little bit jealous. And I say it in like a jokingly way, right? So like, oh, who are you talking to? Was she cute? Like, just joking. There's no seriousness behind that. That's pretty normal to have, like, those thoughts cross your mind, or even possibly saying them out loud occasionally.
And contrary to what a lot of people think, jealousy can be a healthy emotion. It doesn't always have to be bad, but in this sense, it is. Right,
but when we cross the line of truly having negative emotions, anger, disdain, you know, feelings of worthlessness over jealousy, it's a problem. It's a huge red flag. Same with distrusting someone. You know, I know, like, if our partners, let's say, go out together and they don't come home till 5 in the morning, the only thing we're worried about is, you know, safety, in an accident, things like that. There's no concern of cheating or doing something you're not supposed to, right? So fully trusting. And so if there's distrust, whether in a friendship or a relationship, romantically, red flag.
And just that feeling of not being able to trust a friend, a significant other, a colleague, that can create a lot of other negative feelings coming out of that. And I think one big thing that's like, if we're going to use the iceberg analogy, one big thing that lays beneath the tip of the iceberg is fear, right? So fear and maybe some past experiences are sparking that jealousy or sparking that mistrust that's happening. You may take prior experiences from an old relationship or an old friendship into your new ones, and just because something that this individual is doing that reminds you of that doesn't mean that they're doing what the last relationship did.
Right. Also, what a healthy relationship or love is not is ignoring, shutting down, or excluding.
That's a big one too.
Huge one. We all have different ways of coping, and saying I'm going to walk away for 10 minutes so I don't yell is very different than I'm going to shut down and give you the silent treatment for 2 days. Or
that gives me chills thinking about that, because I am not the one who in a fight wants to just do the silent treatment. That would drive me up a wall.
No. And receiving the silent treatment will set me off. So
that's what I meant. Yeah. That sets me off.
Yeah, and it's not shutting down completely. It's not saying I'm fine and then slamming the cupboard doors, right? Again, taking a 10-minute break and saying, I need to walk away for a minute, but I'll readdress this with you, is a healthy way. But those shutting down, that passive-aggressive communication, that's a huge red flag of an unhealthy relationship. Right. I know even in, I don't want to say arguments, because we've never had an argument. In the handful of times we have hurt each other's feelings. I
don't think we ever shut each other out. Like, it's instant, like, let's talk about this.
We talk about it.
Right.
We caught each other like, hey, you're acting some kind of way. Call me.
Right. And we never did the whole gaslighting manipulation thing. You know, sometimes she'll call me out. Like, sometimes I'm the one that just forgets things. And she's like, Taylor, like, what's happening for you? So she's trying to be the definition of what love is. Let's problem solve. Let's communicate. Let's build it up. But sometimes when you get so angry at somebody, it can be easy to fall into that pattern of, you know what? Talk to the hand. I'll talk to you when I calm myself down. So like you mentioned, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I understand that you're upset at this situation. I need a break. I'll be back when I'm ready, versus just getting up and walking out the door or slamming the door or going to a different location where your partner, friend, spouse is not, and just ghosting.
Right. Another thing that love is not is, I'm trying to think.
So many examples of what love is not.
So many. And we'll wrap this up soon, but I think these are common ones that we see a lot. When I say all-consuming, what do you think of?
All-consuming, meaning every moment of the day I am thinking of my person. Trying to give some examples.
Say that more, because I know like your husband's always in the back of your mind all day long. So break that down for me more.
So let's say, I have a perfect example. So this really shows up in a lot of new relationships, like the newness of a relationship with someone is, canceling plans with your friends. Like, oh no, I'm just going to be with my spouse. Or I keep saying spouse because I'm married. Sorry guys. Oh, I'm just going to be with my partner today. And then it just prolongs. It just continues to happen. You start shutting out other people, other relationships in your life because you're all consumed with your partner.
So, right, like when you start to settle down, of course, you don't go out with friends as much. You start to do things together. That's normal digression. But like you said, when you shut everyone out, oftentimes what we find is that's attachment, profound, intense attachment. It's not love. Because love is being able to let that person go some. Love is respecting yourself and saying, I'm taking this time for me with my friends. I'll meet up with you at the end of the night.
I want to say something to that. So I'm not sure if I have some friends or family watching this show or even know who my husband Tommy is, but he made a status actually, I want to say on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, hey friends, family, everyone who's reading my status, it's okay for you to have your own life separate from your partner or your spouse. Like you should be able to go out, play basketball if you want to play basketball at the gym. You should be able to hang out with your friends without the blowing up of the phone and the text messages. She should be able to hang out with her girlfriends for a wine night or a movie night.
Or a weekend, a girl's weekend away.
Or a girl's weekend away. Like it is totally okay for you to be your own person while in a relationship. It can become really dangerous when that is not allowed, like when it is all consumed.
Correct.
That's where the jealousy comes in, the control comes in, and then just the losing who you are.
Is there anything else you want to add to what love is not?
Ooh, lying.
I know, it's like, oh.
Lying is a big one. Lying is a big one. So I don't know how to say this without sounding crazy. So sometimes it's okay to do a little white lie. Like, oh, yeah, he asked me to do the dishes, and he calls to check, and it's not done, but you have it done before he comes home. Like, that type of lie is okay. But the big stuff.
Or no, honey, that doesn't make you look fat, right?
Listen, Tommy does that to me all the time, and I gained 10 pounds, and he lied, so my feelings were hurt. Right? But just the lying and the hiding things. Trying to cover up things that maybe you did behind your spouse's back and just completely denying it. That's totally unhealthy, and that's not what love is.
And I also think lying to yourself.
Road less traveled, right?
Road less traveled. You know, if you, like, I think like you and I share, I think a lot with about our significant others to each other. Not everything. I know there's some things that are off limits, but for the most part, we share. And I don't have to make excuses. I don't have to, like, in my head filter before I share with her. I'm like, oh, so-and-so was super annoying last night, and here's why. Right? There's no having to filter it or pretend it's something else. So I think when you start to have to pretend or make it sound better than what it is, you're posting statuses about how great your relationship is, even though you've gotten into 3 fights this week. I think lying to yourself is, the minute you lie to yourself, that's a hard recovery. That is.
Which leads me into this quote that I have written down here. Wasn't sure where I was going to fit it in, but this is perfect. We accept the love we think we deserve. We accept the love we think we deserve, and that falls right into what you just shared. Lying to yourself, making yourself think that some of these things that fall under the what love is not is appropriate. You know, maybe you're gaslighting yourself. Maybe you're trying to, what is that defense mechanism? When you try to cover up things. Guys, I talk about defense mechanisms all the time, and I'm drawing a blank on it. But just
when you're projecting it onto someone else?
Not projecting.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Compensating, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, where you cover up the negatives and highlight the positives. It's going to come back to me, and I'm going to shout it out in the middle of her saying something later. But just trying to make it seem like it's not as bad as it is. I think that is definitely something that can cause you to not love yourself or gaslight yourself.
Right, and the difference is, you know, I believe personally in my relationships, you don't air dirty laundry. So if there's a serious issue, it's between my partner and I, not even for you or anyone else. Like, that's us. But again, there's a difference between like general like girl talk.
Right.
And so again, if you feel like even in basic, stupid, like all relationships have this conversation, you have to start to lie or cover up. Again, that's a road that's a hard recovery.
And then that kind of falls into the loss of trust as well, when you have that constant lying happening and hiding of things.
Yeah, and I think generally if it's ever crossed your mind, even a little bit, that you have felt bullied in any way in a relationship, whether it's with friends, they bullied you into something, or a romantic relationship, again, huge red flag, because that's not love.
Guys, for anybody who is feeling like I identify with some of these, what love is or what love is not, please share with us in the comments below. We want to know what are some examples that you have experienced in your life what do you think love is? Or maybe you heard something on our list today that you feel like, I don't know, I've experienced it differently. We're totally open to hearing everybody's experiences because, like, as we mentioned when we opened this show, love can be different for each and every one of you.
So I want to end with what love is not with another quote. And it's, a bad relationship will make you feel more alone than what you were before you met that person. So even in friendship, if you are going out, let's say, with your quote unquote best friend, and it would have felt better to be at home alone or with your significant other because of the toxicity that friend gives you, that's a bad relationship. Right? If your partner ever makes you feel alone consistently, not saying like those moments, we all have emotions that sometimes come and go, but if overall you're oftentimes feeling more alone being with that person than what you were when you were single, that's a problem.
I agree with that. And that, I think that kind of falls into the what we talked about earlier, the all-consumingness. Just if you consume yourself so much with this person and they start to withdraw in the relationship, you're gonna feel like alone, single, left out, all these things, and it's just not fair to you, and it's just not what you deserve.
Or if they're gaslighting you or shut down or avoid when they're upset and don't have good communication skills, that can make you feel incredibly alone. And again, that's not okay, because that's not what love is.
Right. And of course, like, we could talk for days about what love is and what love isn't, but just, guys, keep your mindset open when it comes to the definition of love. Notice red flags, such as some of those, what love is not in your relationships. And, you know, think about the green flags that you have in your relationships, things that make you feel good, make you feel accepted, and make you want to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and if you are noticing lots of red flags, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to break up with someone or cut them out of your life. Maybe, maybe not. What we're saying is at least acknowledge the red flags and the green flags, and then take the next steps to either repair it or take the steps needed to replace. But whatever route you decide to go, I think being very honest with yourself is the first step.
So we gave you guys so many examples of what love is and what love isn't, but how do we make that transition between being able to engage in what love is and creating that love in our life?
So that's where you were talking about earlier, the 3 C's, communication, compromise, and commitment.
Yes.
So I think with communication,
that is a big one.
Tell me about the I statement, and then I'll give an example.
So I want to go there in just one second, but like, communication is just so huge, and it's so corny. Like, I remember when I was getting married, I used to ask all the couples who have been married for like 25 plus years. My in-laws, my mom and papa, they just celebrated 52 years married on Monday.
Congratulations.
And my grandparents have been married for 55, 56 years. Anyway, I asked both of them, what is the key to a loving, lasting marriage? And they say communication.
Absolutely.
If you don't have communication, things start to fall apart. Now, I'm sure in those 52 to 55 years, communication has not always been the best. And I statements are what can make it better. So an I statement is, let's say, you want to set the scenario and then I'll give an example?
You are frustrated with me because I've been making all of the business decisions without consulting you first.
Okay. Nikki, can we talk for a second?
Sure.
Okay. I'm really feeling, you know, a little bit left out. There's been a lot changing with our business, and I feel like you're taking over a little bit. It's kind of making me feel like I don't have a space in this anymore.
So, and you can also give an I statement. That's generally how one does it. If you are with or speaking to someone who's highly defensive, we recommend you not even using the word you. So another way to say that same statement would be, hey, Taylor, you know, I feel a little bit hurt and disrespected when I'm not part of the business decisions because it makes me feel worthless. I'm
happy you said that too, because that pulls in the source responsibility. You're right. When you are dealing with somebody who's highly defensive, when you say things like you, it can come off. It's the invisible finger, right? But it can come off as blaming, which may fall under what the love is not. Just that consistent blame. But it's important to identify how you feel in that situation and share that and convey that and communicate that with your partner.
So in Taylor's example, you know, that would be for a low conflict, like you need to give an I statement and and you don't want it to escalate. In a situation that's already escalated, I would recommend using my way, which is a little bit harder. My way. The example I gave. Thank you.
She's telling me that her way is better. I think we got a little bit of a communication problem here.
The example I gave, and just not in any part of that sentence using the word you, which can be hard. We probably made it look easy because we do this all the time. But I think if you've never practiced it, it can be difficult. So practicing it is definitely a good idea.
I absolutely love I statements again, because it just, again, it puts the responsibility back on you, and like you are taking responsibility for that feeling that has been created in your body as a result of a situation. And just sometimes when you share I statements with your partner, with your friend, with the boss, it puts them kind of into like your shoes and into problem solving mode. Like, oh wow, I did not mean to make you feel left out, or oh, I didn't mean to make you feel upset or angry. Like that wasn't my intention. And that kind of sets the room for better communication and better outcomes.
I love that you said that. It puts that emotion on you, because your emotions are on you. It's no one else's responsibility to make you feel a certain way. And despite the acts that someone else may have done to you, I'm going to say bluntly, it's like your problem for feeling that way, right? Which I think is hard to accept that responsibility. But if you hurt me in some way, I'm the one that hurt feelings. Those are my feelings. I own them fully. Now, it may be my job to nicely talk to you about it, but still those are my feelings. Right. So an I statement, and we can drop a comment down below, but an I statement is essentially I feel, and then the emotion, when you say the event, using either you or without you, depending, and then you say why it's making you feel that way.
That's going to be a classic tool and a life changer in any relationship that you have in your life.
Absolutely. We actively use it. We try to actively use it as much as possible. Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, guys, sometimes communication will fall off. So this is something that you're going to have to incorporate into your own language, into your own relationships with other people. And do not beat yourself up when you find yourself using blaming statements such as you. Give yourself a break. Feel a little self-love and continue to practice, as often as you can. And then before you know it, you'll be a I statement king or queen.
Right. And the I statements are so helpful too, because in those examples we gave, that is very different than, hey, I'm tired. You always make the decisions. You're bossy. Like, whether it's true or not.
What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?
Right. You do this. You're bossy. You're bossy when this happens, right? And then we snowball it into something we did, May 2nd, 3 years ago, because women never forget those things.
Right? Okay, so I know we didn't have this on the agenda to talk about, but that kind of falls into under communication, just the listen to reply versus the listen to understand. So when you engage in those blaming statements, the use, you're listening to reply, like you're like, she called me boss. Oh, no, here's the examples. You're bossy because you do this. Instead of when you use I statements, you're more likely to listen to understand how that person feels.
Excellent. Anything else? Again, communication is so broad. But I think we wanted to give you at least that one tool today, and that communicating anything, even if it's a difficult topic, I'm going to say should, because that's okay, should not be difficult, meaning that it may not be easy, you may have some icky feelings, but you shouldn't worry about it exploding or causing something, because love is that patience and understanding, and knowing that even if it's an icky topic, you guys can communicate through it, with a little bit of work.
Exactly. So the second C is compromise. This one can be a little difficult because there's a lot of us who are, or maybe have been or still are, stuck in their ways. Things have to be exactly as you expect it to be, and the other person's just going to have to get with it or get lost. But if you want to fully immerse yourself in what love is, compromise is an important piece of that.
I think, full self-disclosure, that has been and will always continue to be like the hardest one for me in compromising. I either let the other person just, I don't want to say do whatever they want, but I either don't care at all, or it's my way or the highway. And what I found that, I've lived alone for so long, like all through my 20s, and that I did get very stuck in my ways. And so I think that's still one I have to check myself. So if you have a partner that's a good communicator, they're not going to hold it back and then let it become resentful and cause a fight. It's like, hey, Nick, check yourself. I think sometimes you had to do that with me, like, Nikki, check yourself. And then we've communicated about it. So just remembering that compromise is, and using I statements is a great way to get to that compromise.
I'm going to do some disclosure too, since you did. So in the beginning of my relationship with Tommy, this man played basketball maybe 5, 6, maybe even every single day of the week. He'd be gone from the gym from 5 to 8, and I'd just be home like, was I better off single? You know, he's always gone. Just kidding, guys. But anyway, I told him how I felt. I was like, I feel like you're always gone. And that was not a good example of an I statement, but that was back then, right? I feel like you're always gone. Like, what gives here? But he was able to compromise, and he decided, you know, I still love basketball. I still want to go, but I'm going to go 3 days a week, or I'm going to go when you work your late nights. That's compromise.
Right.
He understood how I was feeling, but he was still able to engage in his love of basketball.
So there's a quote that says, "Stop setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm." And I think that's so important, because compromise is not only something you do for someone else, right? I think we think when we compromise, well, I gave a little to that person.
Right.
But the problem is, even if you give your all to the other person, right, you set yourself on fire, literally you're going to get burned out. And that's when seething resentment kicks in, and then we get phone calls for couples therapy, right? Because it's been 10, 15, 20 years of low-key resentment building up. I gave you X, Y, and Z, and you didn't do that in return. And then the other person's like, well, I didn't ask you to do that in return. Like, that, you chose to do that.
It's a spiral.
And it's like the same conversation. Like, I can probably think of 10 couples who've had that exact same fight.
Right.
Compromise is literally just as healthy for you as what it is for the other person, and so that's why it's important to have that equality there.
Love that saying, you know, don't let yourself on fire to keep the other person warm. That definitely applies to friendships as well. You know, if you're a really giving, loving person, you might find yourself going over the top to provide rides to your friends, share money if they have a sob story. Just go. Codependency is a big problem as well, but you're giving so much of yourself, setting yourself on fire just so this other person's like, okay, well, they continue to take advantage of you and take you for granted. That's definitely an example of what love is not. So if you're finding yourself running around doing too much compromising for other people and you're not getting that reciprocated, that would be a red flag and something that you would want to pause and think and reevaluate your own personal boundaries.
And so the last C is commitment. So we're going to take commitment a little bit different route. Commitment does not necessarily mean full commitment to another person, whether it's you're in a romantic relationship and it means just dating that one person, or we're talking about commitment as far as a values mindset. So being able to communicate, let's say romantically, I'll let you take it with the friendship, being able to communicate, like, what is commitment to you? What are your day-to-day expectations? What are your values around commitment? Is it something that you both highly value, that neither one of you value as much? Maybe there's more important things you value. Maybe it's opposite. But being able to understand the mindset that the person has around commitment is going to be huge.
I agree with that. I think it's the same. It's the same for friendships as well. Because I was going to say, just being able to have that open conversation and communication with friends about what are you committed to in this friendship. You know, what boundaries are you going to set? What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? And sticking to that. Just being committed to one another.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in talking about like our commitment, because we're business partners and we were friends before that, and co-workers before that, so we have this very entangled relationship, right? And so I know that I don't get upset if you don't invite me out, like with our group of shared friends. Like I literally don't care. There's a reason, don't care why. I know we're still good.
Plus she's a homebody too, so she's like,
I'm a homebody. I literally
catch you next week.
But because I trust you, we have this commitment. I know we have a lifelong commitment with the business, right? Like you're always going to be there. At some point in my life, I don't need you to invite me every place, right? Whereas some people in our friend group, if we don't invite them but invite others, it's like, well, how come I didn't come? Right? And sometimes, you know, it's just knowing that, again, what does commitment look like, whether romantically or in your friendship?
Absolutely. So to recap, the 3 C's are communication, compromise, and commitment. And again, just like what love is, it's going to look different for each and every one of you in the relationships that you have in your lives. Do we want to jump into this love language thing?
Yeah, so we have another tool in addition to I statements. I don't know for those of you who know, but there's something out there called the love language quiz. There's also multiple books for men, for women, for couples about love languages.
I think there's even one recently that I saw on the internet about friendships too. And kids.
Parents,
yes. It's like a big thing now, the 5 love languages.
Yeah, so essentially what love languages are is, like we talked about, love looks different for everyone. Love looks different within a relationship. The way I feel loved, it's actually kind of similar for us, but maybe theoretically could be different than how Taylor feels loved. And we know it's different than how Tommy feels loved, right? Because we all weirdly took like couples quizzes together.
We did, so we know each other's love language.
Yeah. And it's important you can do that in friendships. I actually had my team of therapists way back when take love languages, so I kind of knew not ways to express love, but ways to express my gratitude and appreciation to my team, right, as a leader. And so knowing someone's love language is really great, because if you want to let them know you care, you have to do it based on how they receive it, not on how you give love.
Correct.
Same with communication. You communicate in a way someone can receive it and not how you give it.
Right.
So do you want to talk about the love languages?
Sure, let's jump in. So I always have to look at this because I always forget one of them. It's something that Taylor does, is forget. So love language, we have physical touch. So that kind of looks like somebody who likes to hold hands, somebody who likes to hug, somebody who likes to, oh, you're funny, girl. That would be physical touch, and that's just, the way of showing love. Quality time. This can drive some people crazy, especially if it's not what they want, but quality time is sitting on the couch watching a movie with one another.
Without the phone being out, like uninterrupted, like look into my eyes.
Right.
Time,
well,
right?
That's physical touch, Nikki. That was physical touch.
That is true.
But just being there with your person, whether it's your spouse, partner, friend, whatever, quality time means everything to that person. And if you're able to show that to somebody whose love language is quality time, that shows them that they are loved, they are wanted, they are valued in that relationship. Acts of service. This one is mine. Okay, so I do a lot when it comes to our business and our dissertation, just things out in the community, that when I come home from work, sometimes I just don't want to cook dinner or clean up or do anything. And I just feel so loved when I come home after a long day and Tommy has made a steak dinner like he did last night, actually. I was like, woo, and he did the dishes too. That's my #1 love language, do the dishes. Acts of service. I'm sure many of you watching this today really value that as well. But that just goes to show, like, somebody realizes that you're very busy or you've had a busy day, so they take it to the next step and they do your chores, or they pick up some of the slack that maybe you've been doing to help you out. There's so many, right? Gifts. Now, I don't really care about gifts, but some people just love receiving shoes, candy, flowers, maybe you just bought like a new cool mop thing that you got going on in your house. That's a gift that could light her up, right? So some people really truly value gifts, and it makes them feel loved. Last but not least is words of affirmation. This is important as well, because some people like to hear that they're doing a good job. So for example, she does all of our newsletters, and I
do them.
Communication, Nikki, communication. But she does all of our newsletters, and I think that words of affirmation is one of your love languages too, because you love when I say, Nikki, this is awesome, this is great. I think people are going to love it.
And so love languages, you can have different love languages for friends versus your relationship. With you, I'm very much a words of affirmation.
Yeah, you are.
I'm less quality time, because normally when we're together, it's business, we're doing 80,000. I don't need your undivided attention, usually ever.
Right.
In my relationship, my romantic relationship, and I don't like when I don't think I've asked for a hug from you. I don't want you to hug me, you're a hugger. I'm like, stay away from me.
She thinks I have cooties.
Like, I don't want you to touch me.
I don't feel loved, Nikki.
Yeah, I'll get close, but I don't want to touch you. But in my romantic relationship, quality time and physical touch are my love language, and I don't necessarily need the words of affirmation or as much.
Right.
So it's very common for us to have more than one, and also for it to be different, not only with friendships or romantic relationships, they can even change with partners. And over time, I think I used to be very much an acts of service, and then we retook it again recently. Yours stayed the same and mine had changed, because I was all about the physical touch and quality time. And so reevaluating, even if this love language is something that you've been familiar with, reevaluating with each relationship is going to be really key in knowing how to give and how to receive love appropriately, or knowing how to ask for the love that you need.
Right. All right, guys, so we covered so much today. Just to recap what love looks like, what love is not, the 3 C's: communication, compromise, and commitment. And then there's the different examples of what the love languages look like. So if you guys would like to schedule a session with us to kind of explore what love is for yourself, please reach out to us on BKLLC19 our Instagram page, and then our Facebook page, which is Bryant Katsaounis Life Coaching. Before we end, I want to leave you with this beautiful Bible verse.
And then we're going to give you some advice right after that.
I forgot about that part. Yes. 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8, but I'm going to do verses 4 through 5 just for brevity. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking, and it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. And to me, that just really reiterates what we talked about today.
So a great piece of advice I'd like to leave you with. If you're questioning whether friendship or relationship, family members, all of the above, like if it's a healthy or unhealthy love, what I challenge you to do is replace the word love in that Bible verse with someone's name. You know, Taylor is patient. Taylor is kind. Taylor does not envy. Taylor does not boast. Right? So replace it with the person you're thinking of. And if you find some things don't fit, red flag.
Love that tip. All right, guys, we look forward to meeting up with you guys next week. Wednesdays, 4:30, Mind Trippin', exploring the connections between mindsets and mental health. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.